So long, partner.
We belong together. We belong together. Yes, we do. You be mine forever.
Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to my latest movie review, where today I review the third film of the Toy Story film series, Toy Story 3. This movie was released in 2010 and was directed by Unkrich. Toy Story 3. We're now at the midpoint of this series because there's 2 movies to go, and we've already had 2 movies. Toy Story 3 is an interesting one because this was the first film that's had a bit of a gap from its predecessor. Toy Story 2 was released in 1999, and this one was released 11 years later. Not necessarily intentional, but it's kind of fortuitous in a way that it was released in the time that it was because of the themes of the plot of this film. And a lot of the audiences who grew up with the first 2 movies will probably resonate with this even more. So inadvertently, they created probably more emotional impact from releasing the movie 11 years after the second one. So what is the plot of Toy Story 3? Well, let's find out. As Andy prepares to leave for college, Woody, Buzz, and the gang face an uncertain future when a mix-up sends them to a daycare center full of new toys. Toy Story 3. Now, without trying to sound like a broken record here, because I said this about the first 2 movies, I'm going to say it about this one. This movie is a masterpiece. I absolutely adore Toy Story 3, to the point where actually it is my favorite one. Obviously, I've not seen number 5 yet, but as far as the first 4 movies go, this one is my favorite. It's my favorite because of the story and the emotional resonance and the themes. The fact that this is so clearly about coming of age, growing up. We've had some coming of age themes scattered in the first 2, but this one goes hard. This is like, no, Andy's grown up, he's leaving for college, the toys need to make a choice, and Andy needs to make a choice about what he wants to do with the toys, and the toys need to find a new place in life because their old life is going to leave them behind. It's time for them to move on and go to alternative opportunities. And that's where the drama in this film comes from, and I think it's perfect. It was the perfect thing to do, the perfect way to end the trilogy, because like I said, the way this film deals with coming of age, growing up, moving on, that is essentially what this movie is about in one way or another. And how different characters deal with that across the film is interesting. In the case of Woody, he is an advantage in some regards because Andy initially wants to take Woody with him, but the others are going to get chucked in the attic, although due to unforeseen issues, all of them end up on the curbside and are almost about to be thrown away until they end up in Sunnyside. So Woody has the choice. Woody has the choice to stay or go, whereas the others, it's either the attic or daycare. So the toys are really down on their luck. They don't have a lot of luck in this film. They're struggling as to know what to do, especially dealing with the heartbreak of their owner who's got too old for them. And obviously Jessie in particular has already been through this, so knows how it feels, and even refers to her previous owner and says it's Emily all over again. This movie is probably a shade darker than the first 2, especially towards the end of the film where the toys get chucked into a furnace or an incinerator. That scene had me in tears. My God. Every time I watch Toy Story 3, I cannot get through that scene without crying. It is just so powerful. Like the fact that they were that, they had the balls to push it that far. Pixar were like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to have the toys nearly get killed inside an incinerator. It's just so unexpected. It takes you completely by surprise. And I love it when films do that. They push you to the emotional brink and then pull back, obviously when the aliens save them. But that was a genuinely harrowing scene and very effective. It could have backfired. It could have been a shade too dark, but I actually think it works really effectively, especially if it being the third in the trilogy. You want to feel like the characters are in such a desperate situation. How are they going to get out? And it's a very beautiful scene, to be honest. And then of course the ending where Andy hands the toys over to Bonnie when he moves on and he gives them to her. A lot of people find that scene very moving, and I do too. It's a very powerful scene, because even not just in the context of toys, but in the context of things we've owned since we were young, or things we've done since we were young. Eventually, life is about change and adaptability, and again, growing up. So the whole point of this film is we need to move on at some point. We need to grow up. We need to realize that these childhood things are important to us, but we can't hang on to them forever. And that final moment where Woody says, So long, partner. Oh god, it gets to me. And the speech he gives to Bonnie about Woody is particularly touching. The writing, once again, is on point, and it is so well done. This one is probably the most dramatic of the three, or the first three anyway, and you really feel the stakes are an all-time high because the toys are in such a desperate situation. They don't know where to go, and I love the fact that they treat Sunnyside like this prison camp for toys. And there's an amazing sequence near to the third act of the film where they have to break out of Sunnyside. They have this whole prison break sequence, which is so cleverly written and so well executed, and everyone has a part to play in the plan. And speaking of which, much like the second film, all the secondary characters get a lot to do. This is why this is also my favorite, because the gang are all together for the entirety of the movie, bar Woody, who kind of goes back and forth. But for the most part, all these characters are together, and it makes such a difference because they're all wonderful characters. And I think that they have great banter, comedic timing. They have a good rapport with each other. As for the new characters, we have a new villain in this movie called Lotso, or Lotso Hugging Bear, voiced by Ned Beatty. He is a plush bear that smells of strawberries and was replaced by his owner, and he did not take it very well. He couldn't move on from that experience, and as such turned himself into a dictator who runs Sunnyside as a prison. And I really enjoyed the film's exploration into that backstory and the drama surrounding him, and the fact that he just could not get over that loss, and he just was consumed with his hatred, and then he just started to see toys as nothing more than trash that were to be thrown away. So he really sort of questioned the existence of a toy and decided to just, punish them for it, in a way. It's very it's very dictator-esque. I mean, deep down he's probably not evil incarnate, but he is a very nasty person, and certainly towards the end when he leaves toys to die inside the incinerator. Michael Keaton as Ken is hilarious. He's one of the best parts of this film. He is so funny, and him and Barbie's relationship, which initially you think, I'm not sure how genuine Ken really is. He does actually care for her in the end, and he wants Sunnyside to be cool and groovy. He doesn't want it to be this dark prison camp. But eventually Ken has a nice change of heart, and he is one of the more memorable new characters in the movie. There are some other new characters like the Octopus Stretch, voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, and there's a few other henchmen that sort of appear. There's quite a lot of new characters, and I think that's the only thing I would say about this film is that there's an overabundance of characters, and I kind of don't think we need this many. I know they're in a daycare center, but maybe you could have reduced the amount of characters to keep the focus on the main characters. The voice cast, once again, fantastic. Tom Hanks as Woody, amazing. Tim Allen as Buzz. Buzz goes Spanish in this one, and it's hilarious. I mean, obviously Tim Allen doesn't do the Spanish stuff of Buzz, but even so, Buzz going Spanish is quite a funny joke, and one of the more funnier parts of the film. Joan Cusack as Jessie, again, very good, just as good as she was in the second film. Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head. Wallace Shawn as Rex. Estelle Harris as Mrs. Potato Head. Mrs. Potato Head gets a much bigger role in this film, and I really appreciate that. And actually, the beginning of the film, once again, like the second film, is a real hook in getting you involved. It takes dialogue from the first movie's opening, but it expands it into this kind of imagination sequence. So we get this kind of train sequence where Woody and Jessie and Buzz are trying to defeat the Potato Heads and Hahn, and it's really quite exciting, but then you realize it is just in Andy's imagination. So I like the fact that they did that because it allowed you to get a sense of the beginning of a child's imagination to then the child growing up and moving the toys on. So there's kind of a nice parallel there. There's a nice contrast from the beginning and the ends. I thought, and it was a great, exciting way to kickstart the movie. And I have to say also, I'm as a James Bond fan, Timothy Dalton being in the film is nice, even though he only has a couple of lines as the hedgehog. The animation is incredible. I mean, obviously there's been 11 years since the previous movie, so naturally the technology has improved, but the level of detail, the textures, the scope of this is probably, arguably, maybe the biggest of the whole series. Or, well, that being said, that's debatable, because I feel like with each installment, the scope gets slightly bigger. And just the whole world of this film looks really dark, especially when they go into the landfill, when they're trying to rescue Woody after he gets pulled into the bin. The music is also really good and very intense and dramatic at times, and unexpected. But luckily, the film does end on a bittersweet note, and there are scenes within the credits. There's not bloopers like the second film, but there are some lovely scenes where we get to see Sunnyside as a new cool and groovy place, and the Randy Newman song "We Belong Together." So it does end on a very happy note, despite all of the emotion that comes with this. At the end of the day, Toy Story 3 is magnificent. This is a magnificent film. It is a masterpiece. And if they'd have stopped here, we would have had one of the best cinematic trilogies ever made. All three of these movies are sensational. They are sensationally good. It's unspeakable how good this movie is. The writing, the humor, it's not quite as funny as the previous two, but it is still funny in its own way. And just the emotional weight of these films is incredible. I know they've made 4 and 5, but I would still, for my money, say that Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, one of the best trilogies ever made. Just hands down. So without question, I have to give Toy Story 3 a 10 out of 10. And it's nice to hear the Spanish version of "You've Got a Friend in Me" in the credits. That's a nice moment. So for many years, well, for 9 years, we thought this was it. That was the end of Toy Story. They'd made the trilogy. It was done. And then Pixar said, "We have an idea that's so good, we just have to make another one." And then they made another 2. So next time, I'm going to be talking about Toy Story 4, which came out in 2019. Quite a bit of time after this one. And now this year, 2026, at the time of recording, Toy Story 5 is out. So let's see how we've continued after the end of 3. Anyway, thank you very much all for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of Toy Story 3. And stay tuned when I review Toy Story 4. Until then, I'm Pajak's Perspective. See ya. Bye for now.